Let's get real for a second. You're not here for fluff. You're not here to waste time. You're here because life's been loud lately. Too loud. The world wants you to break, bend, fold. But what if you didn't? What if you became unshakable, right in the middle of the chaos? Keep listening. Not because I said so, but because there's something in you that already knows you're meant to be stronger than this storm. And today, we're not just talking mindset. We're cracking the code to becoming mentally untouchable. Let's get into it. You see, mental strength has nothing to do with pretending you're okay. It's not about faking a smile or acting like life doesn't hurt. It's about standing in the middle of everything trying to break you and refusing to give it your soul. People out here are training their bodies, chasing money, chasing people, chasing status. But you need to train your mind, because when your mind is solid, life can throw its worst, and you won't flinch. Here's the truth. Being mentally strong isn't something you're born with, it's built. Brick by brick, in silence, in suffering, in solitude. In those moments when no one's clapping, no one sees you grinding, that's where the strength is born. Stop begging for peace in places that only bring you pain. That's the first truth nobody wants to hear. It's the kind of truth that changes your entire life once you let it sink in. You keep walking into the same room hoping it'll feel different this time. Same people, same patterns, same emptiness. You call it loyalty. You call it love. But really, it's just fear. Fear of walking away from something you already know, even if it's hurting you. Because the unknown feels scarier than the pain you've gotten used to. But you know what's worse than walking into the unknown? Staying stuck in the same cycle, hoping it will heal you when it's the thing tearing you apart. Mental strength isn't about how much you can carry. It's about knowing what you're not meant to carry anymore. You can't beg for peace in people who thrive in chaos. You can't ask for stillness from places that feed on your confusion. And the thing is, sometimes the most dangerous comfort is the one that's familiar. You've gotten used to being talked down to. You've learned how to tiptoe around someone else's moods. You shrink to fit inside their version of love. You convince yourself that maybe if you're more patient, more forgiving, more silent, they'll change. But the longer you stay, the more you bleed. And what hurts even more is knowing deep down you've been betraying yourself every single time you let it slide. The mind can't be strong if it's constantly being dragged back into survival mode. You need room to breathe. You need peace that doesn't come with conditions. And sometimes that means walking away without a dramatic exit. Just choosing yourself quietly, steadily. Not to prove a point, but because you're finally tired of pretending the fire doesn't burn when it does. There's a kind of strength in detaching. Not coldness, not bitterness, just clarity. You stop explaining yourself. You stop showing up in places that leave you feeling more alone than when you walked in. And no, it won't be easy. There's grief in letting go, even of what hurt you. But that grief is cleansing. It's the kind of pain that leads somewhere. Unlike the dead-end pain that comes from staying where your spirit's not safe. People will tell you you're too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. That's just their way of trying to keep you small enough to handle. But you're not meant to live in fragments. You're meant to be whole. And you can't be whole in environments that only feed off your brokenness. It takes strength to say, this isn't for me anymore. Not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you finally remember that your peace matters too. You get one mind, one soul, one body. You don't owe anyone access to it just because they've known you a long time or because they once loved you right. Let go of the idea that peace will magically appear in places that have only shown you war. Peace isn't something you find out there, it's something you protect in here. Talk to yourself more than you listen to the noise. That sounds simple, but it's one of the most powerful shifts you can make in your life. The truth is, most of what breaks us isn't what happens. It's what we tell ourselves about what happens. Your inner voice becomes your home, your mirror, your guide. And if that voice is always repeating what the world says, you're not good enough, you're too late, you don't have what it takes, then how can your mind ever be your sanctuary? People don't realize how loud the outside world is until they sit in silence. And when you finally do, that's when all the voices rise up. Voices from the past, from fear, from doubt. Some of those voices aren't even yours. They came from parents, teachers, old relationships, social media. And without realizing it, you accepted them as your truth. But not everything you hear deserves space in your mind. Not every opinion deserves a seat at your table. You have to learn to separate noise from truth. The noise is temporary, always changing, always chasing trends, but truth is still. And it often speaks in a whisper. That's why you need to slow down and really listen to what you're saying to yourself, because that voice becomes your reality. It shapes how you see the world, how you treat yourself, how you move forward. Most people spend their days reacting. They take in comments, criticism, comparisons, and they let all of it define them. But someone else's opinion of you is not your identity. You have to create space inside your mind that belongs to you. A space where you can speak with honesty, gentleness, and strength. Where you remind yourself of what you've survived. Where you don't just wait for someone else to validate you, you validate you. That doesn't mean lying to yourself or repeating fake affirmations you don't believe. It means telling yourself what you need to hear, even when it's uncomfortable. Like, this is hard, but I can handle it. Or, I've made mistakes, but I'm not my mistakes. It means being honest enough to say, I'm struggling, but strong enough to follow it with, and I won't give up. The mind becomes what you feed it. If you wake up and the first thing you do is scroll through voices telling you what you lack, how you should look, where you should be in life, you're starting your day with noise. And that noise will run your thoughts all day. But if you wake up and speak to yourself first with intention, with compassion, with purpose, you take control back. Mental strength is built in those quiet conversations. Not when you're performing, not when you're trying to be seen, but when it's just you, your breath, and your voice. And you decide in that moment that your words matter more than the noise outside. You decide that your story will not be narrated by people who don't even know your soul. Get comfortable being misunderstood. That's a hard one, but it's necessary if you're serious about becoming mentally strong. The truth is, not everyone is going to get you, and they're not supposed to. You could explain yourself 100 times, say it clearly, speak from the heart, and still, people will twist your words, judge your silence, question your choices. And if you keep living for their approval, you'll spend your whole life trying to be understood by people who were never even listening. It's natural to want to be seen, to be accepted, to be known. But here's the thing. Some people only understand from their level of awareness, their level of pain, their own limited view of life. You could be shining, healing, growing, and all they'll see is someone who's changed too much, someone who's not the same anymore. And they'll say that like it's a bad thing. But isn't that the point? To not be the same? Mental strength means not needing permission to evolve. It means being okay with people not getting the new version of you because you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for your peace, for your growth, for your own alignment. Sometimes, the more true you become to yourself, the more distant you'll feel from others. And that's not a loss. That's clarity. People will create stories about you. They'll fill in the blanks with assumptions, with gossip, with projections. And you won't always get the chance to defend yourself, but you don't have to. You don't have to explain every decision, every boundary, every step you take. Sometimes, silence is stronger than 1,000 words. Sometimes, walking away says more than staying ever could. The world teaches us to please, to perform, to blend in. But mental strength lives in the ones who don't mind standing alone. The ones who trust themselves enough to keep moving forward, even when it's lonely. Because they know that being misunderstood for who you really are is better than being loved for who you're pretending to be. You'll start to see that not everyone can meet you at the depth you're growing into. And that's okay. You're not for everyone. You're not here to fit into every room. You're here to be real, even if that makes some people uncomfortable. You're here to grow roots, not just reach for approval. The more you accept yourself, the less you'll crave being understood. You'll begin to find a quiet kind of freedom in being misread, because you'll know the truth, and that will be enough. You'll stop needing to correct every lie, respond to every misjudgment, or prove your worth in places where you're only seen in pieces. Let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. Let them guess. You've got work to do, and none of it requires their understanding. Practice emotional discipline, not suppression. There's a big difference, and knowing that difference can completely change how you carry pain, pressure, and the weight of life. Most people think being mentally strong means hiding your feelings, acting like nothing touches you, walking around with a blank face while your world is falling apart. But that's not strength, that's suppression. And suppressed emotions don't disappear. They just sit inside you, quietly building until they explode in ways you don't expect. Emotional discipline is something else. It's the ability to feel deeply without being controlled by those feelings. It's knowing that emotions are real, but they're not always reliable. They can lie to you. They can pull you into past patterns. They can convince you that temporary pain is permanent, or that your bad day defines your entire life. But if you can learn to sit with your emotions without becoming them, that's power. You're allowed to feel angry, sad, confused, overwhelmed. You're human. Mental strength isn't about pretending those feelings don't exist. It's about knowing how to hold space for them without letting them run the show. You give your emotions a voice, not a steering wheel. You say, I see you, I hear you, but you're not driving today. It's easy to let your emotions push you into decisions, to text someone you shouldn't, to quit when you're just tired, not done, to say something you don't mean just because your heart's racing and your mind's on fire. But emotional discipline is what makes you pause in that moment. Take a breath. Create space between the feeling and the reaction. And in that space, you find control. Nobody teaches us this growing up. We learn how to hide feelings, not handle them. We learn to say, I'm fine when we're breaking. We learn to bottle things up and call it maturity. But real maturity is facing what you feel, understanding it, and choosing what to do with it instead of letting it leak out sideways. Strong people cry. They break down, they feel everything, but they know when to step back, when to process in private, when to respond instead of react. They don't numb it, they don't ignore it, they respect their emotions, but they also lead them. And honestly, emotional discipline gives you freedom, because when you're not at the mercy of every emotional wave, you stop drowning in chaos. You stop living on the edge of every mood swing, every trigger, every moment of doubt. You create a stillness inside that can't be shaken by every storm outside. You begin to trust yourself, not because you never feel overwhelmed, but because you know how to handle it when you do. You don't become cold, you become clear. You learn when to speak, when to breathe, when to walk away, and when to stand your ground. Not because your emotions are gone, but because you've learned to hold them with wisdom instead of fear. Let go without needing closure. That one stings a little, doesn't it? Because we're all taught that closure is something we deserve. A final conversation, an apology, a reason why someone walked away, why things didn't work, why it ended the way it did. We wait for that one message, that explanation. That moment where everything makes sense and we can finally say, okay, now I can move on. But life doesn't always give us that moment. Some people leave without warning. Some situations collapse without a proper ending. And the truth is, waiting for closure often becomes another form of staying stuck. Mental strength is when you stop needing closure to heal. You stop holding yourself hostage to someone else's silence. You realize that maybe the peace you've been searching for isn't in their words, it's in your decision to stop looking for them. Some people aren't capable of giving you what you need. Not because you didn't matter, but because they never learned how to face themselves, let alone face you. Sometimes closure isn't a conversation, it's a decision. A quiet moment where you choose to let go, not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself more. It's when you stop refreshing that message thread. Stop checking who's watching your story. Stop overthinking what you did wrong or how you could have made them stay. Closure doesn't come from outside. It comes from within when you tell yourself, even without the answers, I'm still allowed to move forward. There's a kind of strength in walking away from unfinished stories. In letting a chapter close without needing to write the perfect ending. Because some endings are messy. Some people leave mid-sentence. And waiting for the perfect conclusion will only keep you reliving the same pain over and over. And maybe, if we're being real, part of us doesn't even want closure. We want another chance, another opening, another shot at fixing something that already broke us. But chasing that only delays your healing. It keeps you tangled in something that already chose to let go of you. That's not love. That's attachment. And you deserve more than a cycle that keeps pulling you back into confusion. Letting go without closure means learning to carry your own peace. It means accepting that not all stories have clarity. Not all people give you the truth. Not all pain will be understood. But none of that has to stop you from growing. You don't need all the pieces to move on. You just need to stop picking at the wound long enough for it to close. You don't need someone to explain why they couldn't show up, why they couldn't love you right, why they left when you needed them most. Sometimes they don't even know. And even if they did, their reason won't erase the ache. The healing happens when you stop chasing it. When you stop trying to make sense of what hurt you and start building something stronger from the pieces it left behind. Choose grit over motivation. Because motivation is like a spark. It comes and goes. It's exciting, it's loud, it gets you moving for a while. But then life happens. You get tired, you hit a wall. The plan doesn't go how you expected. And suddenly that motivation you were depending on disappears. That's when most people stop. That's when they say, I'm just not feeling it anymore. But mental strength isn't built in those high energy moments when everything feels right. It's built in the quiet, difficult spaces where you show up even when you don't want to. Grit is what carries you when motivation is gone. Grit is steady. Grit is showing up to the work, to the healing, to the process on the days you feel lost, uninspired, or completely drained. It's not about forcing yourself to always be productive. It's about learning how to be consistent. It's about showing up for yourself even when the results are invisible. It's choosing the long game over the quick fix. Most people wait for the perfect moment. They say, I'll start when I feel ready. But the truth is, you won't always feel ready. And the people who wait to feel ready usually stay waiting forever. Grit means you begin anyway. You move with doubt. You move with fear. You move even when the voice in your head says, what's the point? And every time you push through that resistance, you get a little stronger. Not louder, just stronger. Motivation will give you a reason to start. Grit will give you the power to stay. And in this world, where everything is built on instant results and short attention spans, grit is becoming rare. But it's the secret ingredient behind every breakthrough. Behind every strong mind is a history of small decisions, late nights, quiet mornings, repetition, failure, trying again, not because it's exciting, but because it matters. Grit doesn't need applause, it doesn't need an audience, it's what you build in the dark. It's what you practice when no one's watching. And slowly it becomes part of you. It turns into trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in your process. You stop needing constant motivation because your discipline takes over. There will be days when everything feels heavy. Days when your mind is tired, your heart is distracted, and your body just wants to rest. Those are the moments that shape you. Not the easy days, but the ones where you keep going even with a whisper. When you show up for your growth, even when the world gives you 100 reasons not to. It's not about being perfect or pushing yourself to burnout. It's about building a quiet kind of resilience that says, hey, keep showing up. Whether it's messy, slow, uncertain, you're still in it. That's grit, and that's what mental strength is made of. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to get up one more time than life knocks you down. Mental strength isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the power to whisper to yourself in the dark, I'm not done yet. And you're not even close.